Perfect. So today is kind of the second last one of these workshops, and I was thinking the best way to move forward with it was to put into practice everything that we've kind of learned and finish off some of the narrative elements. So talking about bringing in the very last interview we've got, preparing stuff for mixing, getting everything sorted in a kind of like logical way that's going to make it easy for you to make any changes later down the line. It's also going to have a little chat about recording sounds with your phone, some really kind of guerrilla DIY stuff you can do to make phone recordings sound a little bit better or like make them a bit more professional. Also we'll talk a little bit about reference mixes. And then we'll also, because we've not really done it a huge amount, talk about a few other podcasts that I've been listening to recently and talk about some ideas, etc. from that. But the main bulk of this today will be, I think, going into Reaper and just track playing, getting all the things finished off. We'll also have a little look at music. I've found a few copyright-free websites that have some music, so we can drag and drop that in, and potentially look into making some sort of intro and segmenting up the podcast as well. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, perfect. And oh, one second, actually, I just want to make sure I'm sharing my sound and change it around. 1 second. Okay, and then I'm just going to change around my audio driver again. So I need to go in. Oh, it's the wrong. Yeah, there we go. Built-in output to CD. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly hit play, and if you just give me like a thumbs up or something to let me know that the sound
points in Lviv. That was like the third day of the war.
Yes, perfect. 1 minute. Okay, so what I'll do, because some of you guys weren't here last week, I'll go over a little bit of what we did, just like going over the new elements. So we looked at bringing in these low drones and messing around kind of with somewhere between sound design and music, but we classify them under music. So we have stuff like this.
The early Soviet period, and mainly just some warehouses or like some storage spaces for the residential buildings. I hope that the rumors about nuclear weapons, they will remain rumors.
And we also we brought in some little sound bites from some BBC archives. So up here, I played this section.
Is in Putin's head. And before the war, it was kind of 2 or 3 months, the articles from Western intelligence that like Russia is planning the invasion of Ukraine.
As a pretext for an invasion of Ukraine.
The British government has issued its strongest warning so far about a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Russian intentions in Ukraine.
But the problem is that the Western intelligences have been like...
So those are kind of 2 maybe unique things that we brought in last week in terms of like ideas and concepts. And so today I was thinking the plan we can start with is I brought in some music. It might be a little bit on the cheesy side. I will talk about where I found it as well and how we can maybe reappropriate it. So let's make sure I get the name of the site right. It is called, I used a site called Pixabay, which is a kind of copyright royalty-free, I guess, sharing platform slash file distribution. I think they started out doing pictures and videos and etc. But they have quite a nice indexing system. So it seems like there's a fair bit of copyright-free music on there, and you can kind of tick different tags and use a little search bar.
A few of my friends are actually using this. It's intensively, so it's quite nice. Yeah,
perfect. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I only discovered it like yesterday or so when I was browsing for different options.
I've just heard a couple of compliments regarding this platform. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I'll just play a couple of things, and they might not all work, but I just kind of had a quick purvey through and downloaded a few that might be cool. So this is a I don't know if it's actually traditional Ukrainian, but it's like kind of traditional-esque. It's a little bit, it's the only one I could find of traditional stuff, but I was thinking potentially we can use it even if it's not in the musical sense. We can put it as like background music over some of the town ambiences and process it to sound like it's far away in the space, etc. Then we have these, which are, I think one's a slow piano track and one's something else. I guess this is and then we have this track here, which is kind of a solo piano ballad thing, I think.
Sam, could you repeat again in which context you want to use it for the background ambience of a city?
So potentially this one, what's it, Kosatyok? I was thinking of potentially using it, processing it to make it sound like it's in the background. Maybe when Victor is talking about his tours and we have some sounds that we sound designed before, where it's kind of like city noise.
I don't recommend you to use the first option. Second is fine. I mean, but the first one is the manner of the song. It's a wedding manner, so it's like yeah, probably you won't hear anything like this, like in
the street,
on the street, apart if it's not a festival or a restaurant with Ukrainian traditional food or a wedding, or some kind of a ethnic celebration. While the second song, even though it's in the MIDI, the actual sounds like a Guitar Pro. However, but the melodical, like this kind of pizzicato manner, like try to mimic the kobza and like some Ukrainian traditional instruments. So like probably that as a background thing would fit mildly into the context.
Perfect.
And especially if we're talking about Uzhgorod as well. So probably the third thing you could use when you talk about Lviv, because it's much more aristocracy kind of place where you're more likely to hear a piano versions of like songs on the streets and etc.
Okay, perfect.
Good choice though.
Well, thank you. So I'm gonna make a little note in their name so I don't forget. So I'm gonna put Lviv and I was gonna put that. Perfect. So
in reality, most likely the ambience of the city would be with some pop rock music or hip hop. Realistically, this is what you're gonna hear on the streets.
No, I understand. So yeah, the plan as well is to maybe either use this music. We might use it even if it's just an example, because I would like to kind of dig through for a while, but to make some sort of an intro. So I don't know, I mentioned last week that I thought a nice way of actually releasing it or packaging it for distribution and a kind of concept was, we've got these 4 interviews plus Vika as a kind of contextual like sound bites thing. And I thought it could be nice to break it into 4 parts. So we have it as one thing that exists and it all flows together. But then we'll look at, once we've kind of arranged everything nicely, actually creating 4 separate project files from the same file and just slightly tweaking it so that they have their own sort of changes. And we can just use, for example, just Daniel, we have a small short segment of podcast that's like, how long is it? About 8 minutes or so of Daniel speaking, and then the same for Lisa, and the same for Victor, etc. So I was thinking it could be nice to try and build an intro so there's something relevant and something the same. And also it's quite a good skill set to do. Now, the only problem that we might have in trying to do this live is if I need to record my voice, I think the Zoom audio drivers potentially grabs the I think it doesn't let me basically use the input mic from my laptop inside of Reaper. So what I'll do is I'll make a track and talk you through how I would do it if it would actually receive it. And then we might create the intro with kind of like placeholders, and then I can re-record it once we finish this for next time and just slot it in. But so if I bring up the mix of you here, just with Command M, and here we go. So you've got the routing here. One second. Just go around. And it should give me the option here. So on the track itself, you have this little in with a drop-down menu. That's the input. So here you can select and actually change it between audio and MIDI. So we've not actually talked at all about MIDI yet, and I'll just quickly explain it so that if you're working the software and you see it, you aren't kind of suddenly completely confused. But MIDI is basically like a musical data interchange. So it holds the note values, like you have a C and a D, and it basically says which note it is, for how long it's being held, how hard you hit it. And it's usually used for the virtual instrument-y type stuff. Also some other things like control surfaces that we won't get into. But predominantly for the podcasting stuff, we've just been focusing and will be focusing on audio. If you want to get into like music composition, or maybe making your own music for podcasts, etc., then MIDI would be really useful to have a little look into. But so we're just keeping it on record input. And now here we can do force format input mono. And this is a little bit confused because I'm using the Zoom audio drivers, but normally it would say built-in microphone or built-in input, something to that effect, depending on what your laptop is or what your audio drivers are. But you would select this, and then I'm just going to mute it in case it causes feedback, because I know the Zoom audio drivers are a little bit funny. So once you've selected your input here, as you can see there, we've got it on force mono. You click the little arm record button, and here is where you would see signal. You'd see a little blue line popping up and down. And now the other thing to maybe quickly talk about as well, and I think we've mentioned it before, but we'll just go back over it, is that when you're recording your own voice, you're either going to want to just mute it if your laptop is maybe very slow, or you're going to want to be able to hear yourself in the headphones that you're wearing. Basically, what the determining factor of that will be is whether your laptop can handle it, whether your computer in general can handle it. So 2 seconds. I'm just admitting Martinez quickly into the room. So what we've got in the option, I'll open up the audio menu of Reaper. Hello.
Hello, Martinez.
Well, I think he's still maybe connecting. So we've got this buffer size up here. It says, calls it what size? It actually doesn't label it properly. But this is basically how much delay you're going to have from the input to you hearing it. Now, the lower you make this, the less of a delay you're going to hear, but the harder your computer's going to have to work. It's basically giving it a head start, to start processing stuff. Think of it like if it was running a race. This number, the bigger it is the bigger a distance of a head start you're giving the computer. So if you want to hear yourself, you want it to be kind of low, somewhere like 256 is probably workable. But if not, you can always just do something really simple, like take one ear off your headphones and keep the track itself muted. And then it's just simply a case of you hit, if I close the mix of you hit the little record button here, and it'll go along the track. So I'll just do that now.
In any way we can, that's what you have to do. And
you can see we've got the file coming up over here. And I think that might be the Zoom audio. So we might actually be able to record the intro, but we'll have a wee look at it later. So yeah, that's like the basics of recording in Reaper, especially if you're using your own internal microphone. If you have like an external interface or anything, it gets a slightly more complicated, but not hugely. But you have kind of the privilege of controlling your gain or like the volume. Whereas with this, it's, I guess, makes it simpler, but also you don't have the same amount of control, etc. So the other thing we'll look at now that we've been talking about recording between a microphone and using an interface versus recording directly from the laptop. So everything else you've heard so far, we will have a play through, is just people's laptop mics recorded over the Zencaster that we talked about before. So if I play here.
Sure. My mom has some Slovakian roots, but still she's Ukrainian.
And so you can kind of hear the tonality of that. Like it sounds totally fine, it's totally clear, but it does have this like mid-range, nasally kind of thing going on that I guess everyone you associate to like Zoom calls or anything like that. But what we'll have a look at now here. So this is our last interviewee that we have that we're going to go through and edit together. And her name is Kasia. And Kasia, maybe Eugene wants to say a little bit about Kasia's background, but she's an activist in Glasgow.
Kasia is the person that I met on the beginning of the war in Glasgow on pro-Ukrainian protests on a George Square, and she, being first of all LGBT and a human rights activist in Glasgow, as a also a neighbor nationality to Ukrainian, she can really relate to the conflict happened. So quite quickly she got involved with Ukrainian minority representatives here in Scotland, not only in Glasgow but in Edinburgh as well, and also with some either social, like a kind of political representatives and local social activists, and helped very quickly to organize and grow in size the protest movement in Glasgow, especially. Also, she obviously spreads it all through the different channels, which are like some student channels and other places where user is more involved. She's a poetess as well, and yeah, generally very socially active person. And she's on this podcast as an element that showcase that it's not only disturbs Ukrainian and it's not only about Ukrainians, but unfortunately this is much more global and wider topic that touches everyone.
Perfect. So the one difference that we did with Kasia is because Kasia is based in Glasgow, and it's the only interview we have had that's here. She's just down the road from me. Was that we could record her with actual mics. So microphones we used were two Sennheiser 421s, which are dynamic mics that we talked about, I think, a couple workshops ago. And we had them going into a Zoom H5, which is like a little location recorder. So I also use it for going out and getting like ambient sounds, or it's just a really good like point and shoot thing you can keep in a bag. It has a little stereo microphone pair on the top, and it just records straight to an SD card. And from the SD card, it gives off these two files. And yeah, so we'll have a little listen to the quality now, and we'll compare it. So we have Lisa here, and we have Kasia here. So Kasia sounds like this.
Of months of being here, I was constantly surprised by things. Obviously Poland, especially the Poland that I experienced, which is...
And then we'll compare it quickly to Lisa.
I really wished that Ukraine would get its recognition in another...
Okay, so you can kind of hear that the one has significant more boxiness. This one might seem louder, but this one actually gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of what we can do. So if we have a quick look now, I'm just putting some effects. So if we look at compressing it, let me just see where it is. And we can compare compressing between the two, because we'll be able to, I think, compress the tracks recorded from microphones probably quite a bit harder, and it'll still sound clear and not overblown when compared with the the internal microphones. So here we go. Let's have a listen to Kasha. I'm just going to compress this, and it should start to sound more of that traditional podcasty sound, you know, super present, super dry, and in your face.
Very open and.
Let's see if we can just make sure it's on the right track.
The first couple of months of being here, I was constantly surprised by things. You know, obviously Poland, especially the Poland that I experienced, which is quite a conservative family. You know, my family went to church every week. You know, like a lot of my upbringing is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this kind of conservative, not very inclusive environment. And so when I came here, I was very lucky to come here with some of my friends who were already left-leaning. And because I was still surrounded by...
So as you can hear, that's already making it quite a bit more present and clear to myself. Now we can kind of compare between the two. So we have again Lisa.
Local business, which is transportation company.
And Kasha.
Upbringing is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this kind of conservative, not.
And what we'll do as well, so that you can get an idea of what the difference between the two is when it comes to what effects you can apply. I'm going to put the same compression we have from Kasha. Yes, I should work if I just hold Alt and drag. Oh, no, it's not Alt, it's a Command. Yeah, so if you just hold Command when you're in the mixer view of Reaper and you want to duplicate an effect. So we have this compressor here. By Command dragging it anywhere, you duplicate it to there. So we've just done it twice. So I'll just delete that effect. So we have this here, and I'll need to still tweak the threshold, etc. But you'll just hear what that kind of heavy compression does to Lisa's voice, because her voice will already be compressed by the internal microphone and the Zencaster software, whereas with Kasha, there's totally no compression, basically.
My family, particularly my dad, runs a small local business, which is transportation company that provides needed transport for whoever basically our customer is. So for example, if there is a sport group needed to go to Slovakia, we can provide
and then if we skip back over to
when the war started, the first impulse of
this kind of conservative, not very inclusive environment. And so when I came here,
you can hear there's still quite a big disparity between the two. I would say Kasha's, it doesn't have as much bottom end because of the distance that Kasha is speaking from. She's not directly on the mic compared to Lisa, because I think from my memory, Lisa was using a pair of headphones with the kind of built-in microphone. So it's very close to her chest. You're getting loads of the kind of resonance that comes from that.
To be honest, because I've been present during the recording, Sam, it's just unconfidence of the person in the front of the mic, you know, and as well, you know, it's just she was located and, you know, not too close, not close enough as well, so it's okay.
Yeah, but like a large portion of it is just the mechanics of the technical limitations, and there's no problem with how it sounds. Like it's totally articulate, you can hear it perfectly. It's just, I guess, so you can get an idea of the difference between, I don't know, if you were interested in investing in a microphone and an interface, or a couple microphones and an interface to do your own kind of podcast, what the quality difference is going to be, or whether it's worth it. And we will also have a decision to make. So I'm not quite certain myself which is the best way to go about it, but because we currently have 4 interviews, they all sound, you know, roughly similar in terms of they've come from the same kind of mic quality.
Audience have been sending us the
feeling of unity and
in any way we can. That's what.
And it's got this kind of like lo-fi sound. Now, if we put Kasha's stuff in, it's going to very likely sound out of place only in terms of audio quality. So we can look at processing this to actually make it sound slightly more degraded and slightly closer to these other parts, which could be a way of blending it in masking, or we can use it for creative effect and actually just have it as a super clean sound. So I think realistically the best way is to probably keep it in its like full quality, especially because we're thinking about cutting them up into segments. But maybe we'll have a little look at how to try and slightly match the tonality and quality between the two. So let's just pick kind of the roughest sound one in terms of like microphone quality. So I think that's Victor. I might be wrong.
Audience have been sending out.
Yeah, so I think Victor has the most room tone. You can hear the environment he's in quite a lot. The microphone itself has got a little bit of this kind of like crackliness almost.
My father is a Hungarian gentleman, but
so what we'll do is we're going to compare this and we're going to try and match, not match perfectly, but take the Cash's audio that we have and make it sound a bit closer to that, just so it's like, it just as an exercise to get used to using different tools to get like a very specific result. Because up until now, we've been kind of using tools we've been using them to creatively see what happens, whereas this is kind of, you have a very defined goal of what something should sound like. Let's see how close we can get it or how similar we can get it. So the main tool that we're going to want to do this with is EQ. And we've got the re-EQ here. So I'm just going to add this into Cash's channel. One sec. There we go. And let me just quickly sort that. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Cash's a section of Cash speaking. And I'm going to tweak it. And what I'm going to focus on doing is kind of emulating technically what the computer microphone is doing, which is taking away the bottom end and a bit of the top end and kind of exaggerating this mid-range, kind of like, you know, a stereotypical telephone sound or anything like that. So for one, I'm going to make this a high-pass filter. So I think we've mentioned before, but I'll go over it again for reiteration. The high-pass filter lets frequencies higher than it pass. So you can see down here, anything here is being cut away. And as you bring it up, and if we were to change this to a low pass filter, it's going to change and let anything lower than it in frequency pass. So low pass, high pass. So we'll start with one, having a high pass up here. I will set it somewhere here. And then we'll take 4 and make that a low pass. And we're going to now tweak these to make a little, I guess you could think of it as boxing the sound in, making it kind of more restricted. So
that I experienced, which is quite a conservative family. You know, my family went to church every week.
Okay.
You know, like a lot of my.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go back and re-reference Victor again, just to see.
Join like our local.
Okay. So it is also like a mid-range boost. I'm not quite sure where. I have a feeling it's somewhere here. But we're just going to take this third band and just sweep it around and see when we start getting that similar sound.
Quite a conservative family. You know, my family went to church every week. You know, like a lot of my upbringing is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this kind of conservative.
So now if we compare this is getting closer, I think, to what Victor sounds like.
Doing the same things, but I added the whole
upbringing is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this.
Okay, so I'm gonna also take away the compression that we did and just see what the differences are there. 2 minutes.
Is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this kind of conservative, not very inclusive environment. And so when I came here, I was very lucky to come here with some of my friends who were already left-leaning.
Okay, and now the thing that's missing from it, and I don't think we're going to use this in the final one, but just to get used to using effects and hearing how you can use them kind of subtly to match stuff, is that we're getting a little bit of distortion on Victor's channel. So I'm just going to see what we have. I don't actually know what distortions come stock with, or if there's any and a saturator. I'm pretty sure there should be. There should be in the JS. And I'll just type in saturator and see. Compressor, there's some saturation. So I don't know. This is, I think, this is a really straightforward, so one knob, one fader piece of plugin. And let's just see what it does to sound.
Is common for other people, but I would say it's very specific for this kind of conservative,
not
very inclusive environment. And so when I came here, I was very lucky to come here with some of my friends who were already left-leaning. And because I was still surrounded by
what we can do now is
and
bypass
artists
them
in
and
Poland,
unbypass
but
them.
obviously the environment isn't as
so this is before,
or wasn't at the time, wasn't as liberal. So
and
I still
this is after.
Did experience the culture shock that you asked about.
So obviously it sounds kind of technically worse. It's less clear, etc. But it's just to have a look at how we can use some of the tools and stuff we've talked about in ways that are very specific to a goal, using it to try and get the exact sound of something that you can reference and you know what it sounds like. And it can be tricky, especially with certain sounds. I would say this is maybe one of the slightly easier ones to match because it's kind of a logical route that you can go. Okay, there's limited frequencies response. Okay, there's compression happening from the software. Okay, there's distortion happening from the microphone and stuff. But sometimes you might just be totally in the dark and have to throw things around at it at kind of semi-random. So that was having a little look at good quality, a recording that's come in with recorded through a proper mic, etc. But because this is specifically focused on like open source podcast making, I thought I would compile like a very short little list of tips and tricks if you want to go out and, for example, record your own ambience. Because up until now, we've just been going on BBC Archive and all these great sites that are copyright free and getting stuff like the sounds of cars driving or ambience of war, morning ambience, all this sort of stuff. But maybe you are doing maybe some sort of like hyper-personal story and you really want to actually capture the sounds of your environment or the environment that you're specifically talking about, because it's always kind of nicer, I think, when you can have customized sounds that you've recorded in exactly the way you want, etc. So what you can do is use your phone, because phone microphones are pretty good, to be honest. Every year they seem to get better and better. So usually most phones should have just a built-in like voice memos or anything like that. And essentially it's fairly straightforward of just hitting the record button, but there's some things to take into consideration. I don't know if you've ever taken a phone to like a concert and tried to record a segment of the concert and you've played it back and your phone is it sounds like someone's crushing the phone while it's playing the sound of really loud music coming out of it. So if you know that what you want to record is, say a concert ambience or something incredibly loud, maybe a air show because you're talking about a plane podcast, something like that, you can take a little bit of sellotape and just tape over the microphone. So mics, they usually are located like on the bottom of the phone. I think this one is mine here. And there's also sometimes duplicates up on the top side, but it really depends on the phone. But generally, for like iPhones and most of the standard Android phones, they end up on the bottom near the charger. So have a little look around, and you can pop just a piece of sellotape, and basically the thickness, you can put 1 or 2 or 3 layers, as many layers as you need. But the more layers you have, the more gain reduction, the more you're protecting the microphone from the air that's moving. So it is going to change the sound a little bit. You're going to get kind of the equivalent of, no, not this one. One sec. I'll just actually show you with an EQ from here. So you're going to basically get like top end roll off, something to the effect of this. And the more tape you add, this is maybe 1 layer, then this is 2 layer, then this is 3 layer. So you're going to get this roll-off effect, which can be nice. and tame all those really harsh frequencies. But on top of this, you're also going to get general volume attenuation. So it's going to like turn down this part in general. So you're going to basically be doing, let me just make this so you're going to be doing this as well as this. And basically this part and this part are directly proportional to the amount of tape you chuck over the microphone. So another thing, it's like most of these are really simple tips, but they're just worthwhile to go over, is to always put your phone in airplane mode if you're going to go out and let's just remove this, go out and record anything, because there's nothing worse than having perfect recording of whatever you want, and right in the middle of it, you get a message or a phone call, and it completely ruins the recording and makes it kind of unusable. So yeah, airplane mode. Finally, removing the case of the phone. So it's also really simple, but a lot of the time phone cases are already doing what the tape technique is doing, but they're much, much thicker. So by putting a thin layer of tape, you're only going to get a little bit of that top end roll off. Whereas if you have my phone cases, I don't know, maybe 2 millimeter thick or something, that's going to completely block out 10 times what the tape is in terms of high frequency, but it's also going to let more air in because it's going to have a little vent, and that is going to allow it to still distort, etc. So yeah, it does. You do need to think about what your source material is going to be. So, for example, if you're recording a spoken podcast, actually in person with the phone, doing simple things like taking your phone out the case, you probably wouldn't need any sellotape because the person's not going to be screaming, but putting the phone maybe on something slightly soft like a tea towel on the table, making sure that the bottom of your phone is facing the interviewee so that it's actually picking up them and not just the room of noise. Also making sure you're not covering the mic, you're not putting the phone down in a way that the microphone is being suffocated by the table or the cloth, because that's going to make it completely inaudible. And a really good, I guess, method of working in practice to get comfortable with it is to always do a little test recording. If you say you're sitting down to record an interview for a podcast, do a test recording on the phone, have it all set up, push record for 10 seconds, and then just play it back and make sure that when you listen to it, you go, yeah, it doesn't sound like it's underwater. It doesn't sound so quiet, I can't hear it. And if there are those problems, you can kind of problem solve from it. You can go, okay, well, I can barely hear it. So does that mean I need to move it closer? Does that mean I need to take the sellotape I put on off? Does that mean I need to check if the microphone is being covered by some sort of cloth, etc. So that's kind of, yeah, that's maybe most we'll touch on today in terms of recording. So we have a little look at kind of high quality recording and a look at some more lo-fi recording. We can also actually, maybe I'll just have to mention that the phone is not the only way that you can, record your own location sounds, your own ambience. You can actually get really, creative and unique with it. Maybe you have an old cassette player lying around at home, or one of those kind of old first early digital voice memo recorders, and all of these have their own sonic tonalities, and you can use that to your advantage. It's nice to be able to have the option of clear, high quality mics, but at the same time, you can find your own sound by using, a strange piece of equipment you find in the attic that you figure out how to use. And even if it doesn't have digital capabilities, recording, say, through an old tape recorder, a conversation, and then either there's a few ways you could record it in just really kind of like basically with the microphone of the computer, which will kind of degrade the quality, but again, it'll get its own unique sound, so it could end up being cool. Or you can potentially, there's some cables that you can do that take the headphone out and you kind of half hack to go into your computer. And basically what that does is the headphone input of laptops or phones for that matter have one extra point of connection, and that's for a microphone, because you often get headphones that have the little mic attached. So there are some connectors that you can buy or make if you really want to, that you plug into the headphone bit and it spits out another little cable, and that cable you can plug in and it'll record directly. So you could potentially plug the tape recorder, if it has a headphone out, into your computer and record that directly in. But yeah, are there any questions at all relating to any of the stuff I just said? No. Perfect. Cool. Well, what we'll do then is we'll move on. So, like I said, the main plan for today is to really whip the podcast up into shape. So, finishing off with this track list, so we're working towards getting all this kind of ambience. We expanded a lot on Danik's general like soundscape and immersion, and moving forward to get that sorted for Lisa, as well as hopefully messing around with bringing in some of this music that we've got, potentially making an intro. And yeah, so I think the best part is to just play through Lisa's section. And I'm going to go through and we'll have a listen. I'm just going to drop markers at places that I think we want sound effects, need sound effects, or anything to that effect. So
we just could not choose a dark way, so everybody chooses the light way.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Nezheva. I'm from Ukraine, particularly from Uzhhorod. Before the war started, I finished my school, finished my high school in 2021, and recently, and for the past time, I was preparing to get to university. Let's say I was doing kind of a gap year, kind of exploring what's going to be best for me. And well, before the war, I was preparing to, to move to another country and actually start my new student life, let's say. And that's what I did, actually. It's just that the circumstances were much more, they were harder than they were supposed to be. Yeah. Honestly, I think that, moving away from home just regularly, usually it's a distress for any person.
okay, so
much more, they were harder than they were supposed to be.
Okay, so I'm going to maybe put some sort of transitional sound here just so we're getting a kind of tense change. So I'm thinking some sort of like airplane flying, landing sound, just also so that it wipes it, because it's very clear that she changes where she's speaking from, not physically, but from the kind of idea of talking about moving and then talking about it more in the present tense. So I'm just going to see if there's just like a plain sound we can have or something. Just having a little look on the BBC sound effects section. Okay, I found, I think, something that we can reappropriate. So it is, it's an aircraft that we're just going to cut a little bit of the tail off. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make a sound effect, because I think, actually, I think I'd maybe consider this more of an ambience. So just go into the ambience. I'm just using Command T to make a new track. Dragging it in here. I'm going to change the color. And then I'm just dragging it in from my downloads to here. And I'm going to call this play. Okay, so I think we just want this kind of second half here. I'll keep doing this. Split there. And now, yeah, so it's in this gap that we kind of wanted. Let's have a see what it sounds like, first of all. Just split by itself. Yeah, so just like this subtle thing, just to also fill in the silence, and just do a long, slow fade out. So now I'm just going to align it to match this match this. Let's just kind of see where it is. That wrote down there. Yeah, so it's almost in the right place. I'm just going to bring it back a little bit to here and unsolo it.
That the circumstances were much more, they were harder than they were supposed to be.
Okay, so that's a little bit abrupt. So I'm just going to do a kind of slower fade in and see, and maybe just turn the overall volume of it down as well. Okay.
They were supposed to be. Yeah. Honestly, I think that, moving,
okay, so
moving away from home, just regularly, usually it's a distress for any person, for a teenager or for a young adult or for just a regular adult to, trying to getting away from their, in the 24 environment, but you cannot think of anything else rather than your country's being invaded.
For some reason, it seems to be constantly muted. Okay, yeah. So we have this little section here that I'm just gonna look at filling.
Think of any.
So I'm going to listen a little bit earlier on for some context.
Well, Lisa, wake up! The war has started. It's such a feeling of distress and of uncertainty, and you just cannot wrap your head around it because you have to start to adjust to the new system, new environment, but you cannot think of anything else rather than your country's being invaded.
Okay, and then we start with.
What I was actually doing during this time right now is
we might
think of anything else.
Okay, so actually, I think what we can do potentially is just bring everything forward a little bit. Make sure it's yeah. So I don't think we need this big gap of silence, and instead we can have it much shorter and just have it like a kind of pause, because they do narrative-wise kind of tie to each other.
Your country's being invaded. What I was actually doing during this time right now is helping my family's business, my dad to set up and evacuate refugees from Ukraine right now. So it wasn't 24th, it was the 26th of February, so 2 days after the war started, we were at the border.
Okay, so I'm going to put the marker here because I quite like this idea of, especially because of the visceral narrative element of the story, trying to at least create some sort of immersed environment to do with the border. So I'm going to do border sound, see if we can find some sort of border checkpoint noise in a minute, but we'll listen through because I think it'll probably require quite a few different sounds. We can try to get them all at once.
After the war started, we were at the border. We were standing in this huge, long queue of cars, of people, of everyone. So I'm
going to put
and
car noise.
Suddenly out of...
And maybe even, so car noise, and then when she has people, we'll bring in people noise on top. So it might be a little bit hard because obviously I would really like to get people speaking Ukrainian, but I'm not sure how many Ukrainian speaking crowds there are on the BBC archives, but we'll have a little hunt and see what we can find.
Suddenly out of nowhere, this guy comes up to us and asks if we have place in the car for one more person, for his sister. He said that they just ran away from the cities that has been bombed. It was the first thing that we said, okay, if we can help this one person in any way we can, that's what we have to do. And we just took in this girl with us to...
Yeah, so here, again, to make this, because it's, especially this part, I think it's the most narrative-based part of the postcard, is that it kind of has a very clear story with these kind of like visceral adjectives in a really comprehensible storyline, if you want to put it like that. So by putting, I think like the car door closing and just really vectorizing like every element of the.
We just took in this girl with us to cross the border.
And then we can have like a car driving sound and just make it, especially because it's one voice, I'm really keen on, or one person's voice for a long period of time. By having all these like additional sounds, it just makes, it keeps the viewer's attention to an extent. So if we play out along again here.
15 hours passed. We finally got to cross the border, finally, thankfully, safely. Me, my family, and this girl refugee who we didn't know who she was from or where she was or anything like that. And where I had everything settled for me there. So it's not like I was going into nowhere, right? I had my dormitory, I had everything planned for me. Yes, it was still hard, but at the same time, it was not.
Okay, so I'm just going to put a marker here, and what I tend to do is go up to here, and I put it all in capitals. So I'm going to go back now and hunt for the sound effects for these ones. So we want the sound of some sort of border. We might be able to find it, or we'll just have to make it up from traditional bordery sounds. We've got some cars driving, car doors closing, and some chatter of people, and again, cars. Just I think over here. So we'll probably reappropriate a bunch of the sounds. The hardest one is probably going to be the people chattering, I suspect. But let's see. I'm just in BBC sound effects. In fact, I might as well. Let me just change my screen share over so that you guys can watch. Yeah, okay. Okay, so border noise. And let's have a little see. Planes, it's not. For some reason, oh yeah. Border crossing. Let's see, maybe that will give us better ones. I think it becomes like a skill and art in itself to actually be able to search for the right keywords, and every sound library has different ways that they index stuff. So these are all trains. On the very top one is a border.
Just put international border.
Yes, there we go. International. There we go. Why is it still okay? It's large. This is German station with trains arriving and departing. I mean, this could no, it's not useful because there's no trains actually involved in the story. Only because Lisa is talking about going to Vienna.
Traffic noises, because physical car borders usually have a little bit of like queue traffic. Or not a little bit is a little bit to explain it, but still. So yeah, maybe something like, just like a distant people chatter, because it's not too much noise of actual noise happening apart from the environmental noise. People talk a little bit, maybe some cars like, moving slowly, not really motorway. It's not really active movement. It's more like, it's not an active movement. It's a slow movement.
So maybe start, let's see, start.
Car park noise.
Yeah, let's go. Car park atmosphere from inside. Yeah, this could be perfect. Yeah, we'll get this. This could be useful. It would be nice.
This is much better, if you mix it with something.
Yeah. Let's see, so we download that.
Check out, maybe there's some like something more interesting as well, like a few more versions.
Yeah, let's see. Cool. Two. Let's see this one. Too much movement. And let me just see. I cannot spell to say that. Ukrainian language. Just see. Really?
BBC. Oh, sorry, you're on record.
Let's see. Border chat. No, there's maybe just international chatter.
Like, no, Sam. Like, you're still googling like abstract things. It's illegal to take photos, videos, audio recordings on any of the borders. So Googling directly like some noise like this, it's not really like, you know, you can only, you should use something else to build up that environment. You cannot
maybe
have a direct recording or something like that, because people not really sit in a field the Ukrainian Slovakian border recording.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, let's just see. I mean,
put maybe like morning city atmosphere, something like that. Yeah. Like just like, you know.
No.
Very loud, like
City
something
sky.
was weak. Yes, city skyline.
Let's try it.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that could work. Have a little download of that. Let's see what city traffic means. A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, this is kind of perfect. I can't even tell. I think it's English, but honestly, I can't even tell. It just
doesn't
kind of
matter.
like
It's international border.
Yes, yeah, that's true actually. And now the other thing was a car door closing. This should be easy. Car door.
And Ukrainian border officers speak English.
Perfect.
Minimum.
Yeah, minimum. Okay, so we've got different ones. Just have a quick. I quite like this one, I think. Yeah, I think I like the one with the little dip.
I would just download like 6 of them and, you know, and just play with the pitch and that's it.
Yeah.
So there won't probably, there actually would be some signals of the, like, you know, like car signals, but only in a dense situation. Usually it's quite, you know, it's just slowly, quite, it's not intense.
Yeah. Let's see, what is this? 1940s car.
No.
Tractors, a better snow. Weather to mechanical. We do have some driving sounds in already, but I'm just seeing if we can find. Also, actually, what is this?
If you want, for example, you can put as an additional layer. I don't know if it would work. Crack of snow when you're walking on the snow.
Because,
like Ukrainian border in on 28th of February is 4 centimeters.
Perfect. Okay. Yes.
Meters of snow. Up the space, it actually going to be quite natural ambience. Yes, perfect.
Yes, absolutely. There we go. Perfect. Okay,
like,
so we've got
like
that.
A car moving, or even car in the snow or something. You can.
Yes, let's try that actually. A car in the snow. Footsteps in snow, walking, footsteps. I'm so
driving
confused.
In the snow.
Yeah, driving. I'm really confused about how the indexing system is height of
snowstorm.
Yeah, that's probably just going to sound like. It's okay, but it's very hard. Maybe
this is illegal border cross.
yeah, and this is like ridiculous. That's a tractor. Let's just
probably not.
Let's just get a car driving, or just driving. It doesn't have to be car, just driving. And
no, just generally the snow sounds like, or some like, you know, snow, a little bit of wind. It might work well, you know.
Yeah, and
together with this car park noises and.
Yeah, and we have some driving sounds anyway that we can grab from Danny that are already in the session. So,
but don't use tractor or like 1940 sounds like.
No. It was like a normal. I don't know. I found it last time. I think I can't remember when I found it, but
okay.
So I'm just gonna quickly unzipping all of these. So the one strange thing about the BBC archive that I have yet to understand is when you download them, they have their perfect name. So it's called BBC Walking in BBC Cars, blah, blah, blah. But then they just export as a number, like, as you can see, 07000 or 08.
Yes, because the name that you got represented is a visual tag, while in the library, it's actually easier to keep them stored like by digits, you know?
Yeah.
They just give you the original, you know, this like you have it as it is on a server. You know, it's okay. You know, they're not expect you to copy and paste, like to save all the library and name it yourself. It would be too, like, you know.
Yeah. So what I'll just quickly do is go through it, and I'll rename myself. So this is the snow, walking in the snow. And then we've got this one. And this one is the car door, I think. Yeah, this is car door. And this is traffic.
And suddenly out of nowhere,
This one.
died.
This is lower traffic. And then we have finally this one, which is, I think this is the one that we have the chatter in it somewhere. Maybe? Maybe? No, maybe that's it. I actually don't know what this one was. We'll just compare it to maybe one. Maybe it's this one. This one looks like it might have that speed. And into traffic with chatter. So I know the difference, and then this will be rumbling. And we're not sure if we use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take them all up, and I'm going to actually not put them in their folders just yet. And this is because we're making kind of a slightly more filled, there we go, a more filled, 1 second, zoom all the way out to find where I've lost them here. Filled immersive soundscape. It's going to make more sense to arrange them all up here so you can reference it to the waveform really simply. And then once they're all happy, we can color code them and drag them into place. So we have the walking in the snow. So that'll kind of come in probably here where Lisa is talking about. So I'm going to mute everything else, and we'll bring it in one by one. We'll just unmute them. So we have.
It was the 26th of February, so 2 days after the war started. We were at the border. We were standing.
It's going to take this down in volume to start with.
View of cars,
10 dB or something.
people, of everyone, and suddenly out of nowhere, this.
Okay, and then we're going to add the traffic with chatter in. I'm going to get it to that point where there is chatting. We just find it. So I'm going to have that. Fade that in and fade this out a little bit. And then I'm also going to change the shape of the fade of this, just to, not to that, to this, because I think it'll work a bit better with, I didn't hit apply. So to that, and then apply. And now it should see, yeah, we've got a different shape of the fade. Let's have a listen to see what this sounds like.
Started, we were at the border. We were standing in this huge, long,
perfect. Yeah, I'm just going to bring the volume down a little bit again, like 10 dB.
And
let's test that out.
We were at the border.
This is how it sounds.
We were standing
perfect.
in this huge, long queue of cars.
And when they say cars, I'm going to bring in the traffic noise, like the lower traffic that we have, just so that it's kind of, it feels like it's more interactive. We're going to keep that going. And then the only thing we still need actually is people, with a bunch of people. So maybe we can search actually people queuing, like people standing in a queue. And it's queuing with a Q or a C. I think it's a Q.
DJ confusion, which queue?
Queuing is people waiting. Let's go with waiting. Waiting room in an airport, probably too calm. Oh, maybe not. You do hear that it's inside the. Oh wait, I've not shared my screen back to Reverb. Not one second. Let me share it to Reverb for a minute. I'll just quickly see lifts. Maybe a small crowd of it sounds ridiculous like chaos. And then you've got people drumming, etc. South African air waiting lounge. Okay, I'll take this. I'm going to take this sound. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best one. It's some Greenland airport airstrip waiting room. You can kind of hear it's inside, but it might, once it's layered up with other things, you might not actually notice the tonality of the. I'm just going to bring it in now. Okay, I'm going to call this chapter people. I'm going to bring it all the way up here as well. Yeah. Okay, so let's see where we are at. So we have.
After the war started, we were at the border. We were standing in this huge, long queue of cars, people, everyone, and suddenly out of nowhere this.
Okay, so this is really loud. We're probably going to need to a little bit correct the EQ to these as well. Take some of that low end out of some of them.
We were at the border. We were standing in this huge, long queue of cars, people, everyone, and.
Of people, of cars. This needs to be. It's like I've accidentally folded. It's not letting me unfold it. There we go. It's just really finicky. Okay, now.
There's people, everyone, and
cars. So we have traffic. Lower this one. We want to line it up with.
Huge, long queue of cars.
We have cars.
Huge queue of cars, people.
And then this is people. So just lining it up there.
Queue of cars, people, everyone, and suddenly out of nowhere this guy.
Very inside sound. Maybe this bit, if we turn it down, because also we need to remember it's way too loud. So maybe something like this. Bring that to. This is it. Is this people?
Cars, people, everyone, and.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just do it really short, and we'll do like a quick fade out. And I think if we do it like this fast enough, no one will notice.
Long queue of cars, people, everyone, and suddenly out of nowhere, this guy comes up to.
And then we're going to do this for kind of, I guess, the impact. Because if we have these feet walking in the snow for too long, we're just going to lose all kind of sense of their impact. So what I'm doing is fading it out so they kind of disappear. And then when Lisa talks about the guy reappearing, bringing back the walking in the snow to kind of introduce a new person.
We were at the border. We were standing in this huge, long queue of cars, people, everyone, and suddenly out of nowhere, this guy comes up to us and asks if we have place.
And then I'm going to turn this down a little bit as well. And I'm going to try and emulate like the distance of him walking. So I'm going to drag in a fade up, and then we're going to get it to kind of stop because he's going to walk up to people.
Guy comes up to us and asks if we have place in the car.
So we'll just see how this sounds.
He comes up to us and asks if we have place in the car. If we have place in the car for one more person, for his sister.
Okay, and then we want the car door sound. So what I'm going to do is separate this and this. And let's have a little see.
We just took in this girl. We just took in this girl with us.
That is just the noise of the traffic, which we're gonna trim all the way back and fade down like that. Okay, so
we just took in this girl with us.
Okay, so when she says we just here,
we just took in this girl with us to cross the border. 15 hours passed. We finally got to cross the border. Finally, thankfully, safely.
And I'm also going to send this to the reverb a little bit because I feel like it needs a bit more spatial placement. It doesn't quite feel like it's anywhere in the world. So I'm just going to scroll down to reverb, and then it'll show up here, and we can adjust the level with this little fader. So
to cross the border, 15 hours passed. We just We just taken this girl with us to cross the.
Yeah, this is maybe the wrong reverb. So what I'm going to do is actually put a reverb plugin on itself, and let's have a look. Keep forgetting. I think it's reverb rate. Yes, we use reverb rate. And it's like a small room. Do they have any presets? Ah, they do. They might have discrete room. Let's go with discrete room, or actually no, intimate focal. No, discrete room is probably the best, and then we'll just make it smaller. Just bring the size down and make the stereo width 0. So let's.
We just taken this girl with us to cross the border. We just taken this girl with us to cross the border. 15 hours. We just taken this girl with us to cross the border.
That's just a little bit more spatially placed to me. It doesn't just feel like these random sound effects happening over the top of a story. Close this and close that. Then we want the car driving
to cross the border.
So once that car door stop hits, we're going to fade up some sort of driving sound. Now we have some here from Danik, and I think it's under ambience. Should be labeled, and it should be. Here, car driving slowly. Okay, so I'm just going to copy it, Command C, and then we're just going to go to here. Somewhere around right there. So here, and paste it.
Have to do, and we just taken this girl with us to cross the border. 15.
Okay, so let's see.
We just taken this girl with us to cross the border. We just taken this girl with us to cross the border. 15 hours passed. We finally got to cross the border. Finally, thankfully, safely. Me, my family, and this girl refugee with us to cross the border. 15 hours passed. We finally got to cross the border. Finally, thankfully, safely. Me, my family.
Okay, so that's got a nice little bit of just kind of like some colorful contextualization. And now let's have a look. So this car door is going to definitely go into sound effects, but I would say the rest of the stuff we add, I don't think we need this rumbling for now. So I'm just going to delete the track to keep our session clean. We've got people chatting lower. So I would say all of these are ambience, except for the car door. So I'm going to color code them all to be the right color, green, and let's go. If we drag them all the way into the bottom here, like that. And now they should all be part of the ambience. And then if we take the car door, set that to the yellow custom color. And this will especially make sense next week when we talk about exporting all the backup files, like the stems and stuff. It seems like maybe we've not been using the ordering too heavily, but we will.
No, actually, no. So even obviously, like Reaper is not really still not really a DAW that I use for my production. However, like some of the like organizational skill sets that you showed in this workshop is very, very applicable to my softwares where I'm working at. So it's perfect.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I know. I've said it before, but organization to me and working in software, it's like the only way I think I stay sane in keeping on top of everything, because otherwise I would be constantly angry at losing stuff in my session and having no idea where it is. So yeah, naming stuff, coloring stuff, having little buses, all super, super important. So we got up to here, up to the car driving sound. What we can maybe do is take like a 15-minute break or so and be back around about like 5:30, just for the sake of we can come back and continue on layering Lisa's bits and maybe see if we can get some of Kasia bits locked in and have a look at preparing stuff for mixing and everything.
So
Perfect.
12:30, yeah.
12:30, yeah, perfect.
Cool, we'll be back.
Cool, see you in a second. Ciao. Perfect. So where we left off just before the break was we kind of started track laying and sound designing and making immersive the part of Lisa's story. So I think we're just going to continue on with that and try get through that part of the narrative, and then maybe look at editing some of Kash's stuff. So we were up to here. It's marker.
Was going into nowhere, right? I had my dormitory, I had everything planned for me. Yes, it was still hard, but at the same time, it was nothing compared to her who never been abroad, who never seen anything else, and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to. I started looking for people who I knew in Austria, in Europe, who knew where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her. And I just contacted one of my...
So I'm just going to we need some sort of transition here. And I think we could maybe...
I started...
also, there's a bit of a dodgy edit that we can talk about real quick. But with this little transition, potentially some pieces of the music that we have, or we can look at using some like droney stuff that we've done before. So let's just have a listen to this.
Any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Yes, you can hear there's just this little, it's like a little breath. And let's see, this might be too much. So let me just zoom back out. I accidentally knocked the wrong key and went all to the other side of the session. This should be it. Yep. So let's see what happens if we delete this. We might lose a word, or we might not.
Any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Okay. No, so that's not quite right. So it's going to maybe just be a case of something like this.
Anyone to talk to.
Yeah, that's better. And then we'll just put. In fact, it's got a tiny fade on it, and I think that's maybe better. So yeah, in this gap, we'll need some sort of transition.
I started looking for people who I knew in Austria, in Europe, who knew where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her. And I just contacted one of my closest friends, let's say, in Austria, asking her, okay, maybe she has someone who can take her in. And she was like, yeah, I don't have anyone, but here's the link to this person. Maybe you can talk to her and she will find something for you.
Okay, so we've got a few things here. I'm going to add this marker. So here, I was thinking we can put a little message tone, which we have from one of the previous track plays. Then we have here, I think we could do a little sound design of like web research. You want to call it that, like clicking of mouse, basically because Lisa's talking about she went online. And I think that's it. And then there's also another little funny edit at the end of here that we can just clean up.
For you.
So we don't need that little because it's not actually leading into anything. So it just sounds like
to her this. And she will find something for you.
Perfect. There we go. So let's maybe deal with those three for a minute. So I'm going to get like mouse clicking, mouse, computer mouse. Just see. Clicking. Let's see. Surprisingly, there's a bunch of really niche things on here, like toy mouse squeaking, but it doesn't seem like there's the clicking of a mouse. Computer clicking. Computer.
Well,
that's a good website.
You can maybe Google just generally like office noise, desk noise, something like that, and you would have like a wee summary maybe. It might
yeah, that's true. I'm having a quick flip through.
Oh, you see, I can see only the Reaper. I can't see.
Yes. One sec, let me do a little switch.
Don't worry, what is more comfortable for you?
No, it's fine. I'll switch it over to the desktop for 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so you should see it. So we've got
oh no.
Post office equipment machine. It's super like old school. I mean, the closest is maybe this, but it's still like much more. Yeah, it's much more something else. That's okay.
You know what? School. Maybe not school, but like auditorium student studying or something like that, you know.
Student studying. Let's see. No. What we can do, let's do so computer mouse, or computer mouse clicking YouTube copy, right? And we can do the YouTube to MP3. Let's see. I mean, it's such a small and simple sound effect now.
It's quicker to record it.
I know. Well, there's one other one that's maybe better.
This is perfect.
Yeah. Actually, let's go for that.
Or maybe.
Yeah.
No, there was the second video, which is 23 seconds. Maybe it's multiple clicks.
Yeah, it means we can like do it more.
We can just drag and drop like 4 clicks, you know, at once.
And because sometimes these sorts of videos, they actually include the download link in the description. So let's have a little look. More information. PC mouse, they don't have to download. So what we'll just do is just do YouTube to MP3. And go here, pop the link in, download it. Just download it. There we go. Okay. And so we'll quickly close off these and switch back to here. So let me just change the screen share because it improves the audio down if it's just Reaper. Okay. So we're going to bring in the mouse clicking effect, and we've got the message notes, and we'll maybe look at using some of that music actually for the transitional change. So mouse click.mp3. This is going to be under sound effects, so I'm just going to keep it here for a minute. And then let's go over to where is it? At the beginning, we had a whole bunch of, I think it must be under sound effects. Yes, under messages here.
And really, and like in 5 minutes, all the people throughout our country started to message their relatives.
So we just pick one of these because it's just not going to be. The other option is, I think this little is kind of a nice message tone to use. So we'll just go all the way along. And let's see what we need to get up to. I think it's quite far down. Yeah, somewhere about here. So yeah, and drag it back to the marker that says message note. So something like this.
And I just contacted G's were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her. And I just contacted one of my closest friends, let's say in Austria, asking her, okay, closest friends, let's say in Austria, asking her, okay,
maybe a little double
in Austria, asking her,
maybe not. Let's keep it just as well for now. And then let's look at bringing the mouse clicks in.
She will find something for you. So I was kind of just calling here and there, so on and so forth. And I called this one.
Yeah, I like this last one and this one. So what we'll do is we'll take these away. and just put them some sort of logical order in this gap here.
She will find something for you.
We can actually have it maybe on there.
For you.
Okay, we'll just turn the volume down a little bit of them, and maybe even put the same sort of reverb sound on as before. So what we'll do is quickly have a look at setting up another one of these sends. So what I did earlier before we started, ignoring these tracks here, I put a new folder. So we have right now the speech, which is all the vocal stuff, the sound effects, ambience, music, and then here this is effects. And what I mean by effects is like the reverb or any literal processing effects. So what we'll do is make another track. I'm just going to drop it in here. I'm going to call it reverb small. And this one, what I'm going to do is use the same reverb that we used for the car door. Was it the car door? Yes. Yeah. So this one, and I'm just going to again hold. I think it's command. Hold command, and just drag all the way. And I'm using this because the currents of this reverb we have is really big, and it's kind of more used for like very exaggerated effects, whereas this is quite subtle and just helps slowly place things in a bit more of a what's the word, realistic environment. So I'm just going to open up here really quickly. So it should be all happy. This one, perfect. So receive sends. Okay, perfect. So now all we need to do is we route stuff to this channel if we want to send the reverbs to it. Or we can do, I believe it's just click and yeah, it's that or just click and drag. So for a second. For example, we have this messenger tone, and it is under here. And we could take, actually we don't want it from here. We want it on, let's say I need to check which one. Oh no, it's the clicking actually, sorry. And that's under the mouse click sound effect. So you would go over to mouse click sound effect. I can just click and drag, and you see when the mouse appears again, it's got like a little plug ampy guitar jack symbol here. And we just drag that to the small reverb. And now it will show up, and you can see there it says reverb small. And if we adjust here, it adjusts that little circle. And this is the send level, remember. So I'm going to color this as well now before we forget. So some sort of yellow. Perfect. And then let's just adjust that send level to sound natural.
For you.
What about that?
For you. For you.
Okay, that's kind of closer to me for what I want to hear. And now the final bit of what we were working on just there is to put that transitional sound in. So we're going to put, I was thinking one of these musical tracks, since we've not used them yet, and it'll be good to look at kind of integrating them and how you can work with music, whether we need to fade it in, etc., etc. So I'm thinking potentially the slow piano one, but we just need to listen again actually for the context. I'm going to mute these two tracks for a minute and have a listen to what the context of that transition is.
Talk to who never been abroad, who never seen anything else, and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Okay, so it's quite
I started looking for people who I
okay, so let's try with this one. Yeah, it might be a bit stronger. Let's go with the slowy piano kind of one first, and we'll probably need to fade it in. Let's see.
Any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Oh, this is a little bit cheesy.
I started looking for people who I knew in Austria, in Europe.
But let's.
This is like absolutely inappropriate.
Yeah. Let's see what the other option is that we have. Like this one.
Oh no. Okay. No, let me. Give me a second.
Go for it to have a little hunt, yeah.
Yes, I guess. No, this is. Can you replay for me again, like Lisa's talking, like last minute or something?
Yes, yes, sir.
Nothing compared to her, who never been abroad, who never seen anything else, and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
The other option is what
I started looking.
We could do what we did last time. We might need to change the actual drones, but so for those who didn't check out last time, we used a bunch of drones that we could find and kind of faded them together in different ways. So we have this example that I showed at the beginning, which sounds something like this.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. Look, I'm gonna send it to you in a chat. So, because Lisa is from Uzhgorod, in Ukraine, it's quite everywhere is street musicians on the street, and obviously now it's even bigger boom with Ukrainian only music. So there's a video, 35 seconds of just two guys singing very famous Ukrainian rock song Kvitka. And this would be something that would be very, very recognizable and very up to the place, kind of.
Okay, okay, perfect.
And you shouldn't worry about copyright because, yes, I know even one of those guys. But yeah, and there's a famous Uzhgorod gypsy homeless person dancing on this video as well. It's super actual.
Okay, it's super. Oh, one sec. I think I've opened it 3 times.
Yeah, maybe. But because the song is also it's famous. This is something more realistic than this MIDI keyboard nonsense.
Yeah. I agree. Let's see, YouTube 23.
I mean, according to the scene.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, like the song itself is could fit to some different context, but probably I don't know. Just let's try how this work.
Yeah, and also I kind of like I'm a fan of using these kind of phone recordings of music especially in the kind of context of podcast we have, where you've got these kind of weird, raw, rough and ready sounds, rather than, if it was the kind of like studio podcast where it's just everything's perfect sounding, it might be strange.
Well,
but I think
again,
it's cooler.
Like my sometimes on my decisions, in a sound design, I generally think that quality is not always the key when you're building a background, because I don't know, it's like to work with already some corrupted metal or wood and etc. and just work with this, and you try to make it work.
Yeah. Perfect. So let's have a quick listen to just the traffic sound.
But every single one there. People walking.
Okay, so let's see if maybe you can use the ending because we're going to be cutting in the middle anyway. Let's see if we use.
And you can make it quite distant as well.
Yeah, we can use volume and reverb, the space. Yeah, let's go for that.
Stay or anyone to talk to.
Okay, so what I think we can maybe get away with doing, since we want to make it distant anyway, we can do this kind of, if we expand this out and do a big fade in, then we can turn the overall volume of this up. And now I'm going to talk down, sorry, maybe not that much down. And now what I'm going to do is looking at reverb sounds. We have 2 options. We can either use the reverb discrete to the channel, so putting the reverb plugin and automating the wet and dry signals, or we can look at automating the send levels and the volume fader. It might be, I'm thinking, more logical to automate the reverb in this case than a send level, but let's go for the wet.
Again, I would not overdo with the reverb or too much effects on this particular audio file, just because like through perspective of what it consists, apart from the loud noise of a music instrument and vocalizing, you know, you've got those cracks and walkings plus wind plus river, a little bit maybe some birds, and cracks of objects that people handling or carrying back, whatever, and etc. So, you know, just no.
So what I'm thinking is basically fading it in with the reverb, so it comes in totally reverb, and fades to then be dry, and then fades out again with reverb. So what we would do is something. I'm just going to put this in the music section, if we will. Let's test it out maybe this way, which would be something like reverb rate and some sort of setting. So what I'm just going to do now is listen to it with just the wet setting to hear what it sounds like.
Didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Very, very strange sounding.
Sam,
yes.
You use, well, 1 second. Start the file from second 06. This is text-wise, you know, audio-wise and text-wise. This is also meaningful part of the song, from which it would really, really click if someone who speaks Ukrainian would listen to it.
Okay, so this bit here. Oh, wait, I need to mute this for a second so we can hear what he says.
No. Oh, wait. Yeah, just extend it to the left maybe for a couple of, yes, and start your face somewhere there.
Okay.
Yeah, so start your face somewhere there.
Okay, okay, and then maybe, I mean, the fade might need to go all the way here, but like this.
Perfect.
Okay, so we hear in context what that sounds like just with the fades and the vocals, and then we'll do like this kind of maybe fading in with distance.
It was nothing compared to her who never been abroad, who never seen anything else, and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Don't you want to move it closer to the end of Lisa's talking?
Yeah. I think that's the best plan, and we'll maybe extend.
Well, yeah. Again, this is only creative decision about the context, not about format. You know. Because,
yeah. Let's do it so that maybe we do it like this. So it's halfway over.
Any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Perfect.
I started looking for people.
Okay, and then what we can do is when Lisa comes in, we can just drop the overall. So we could use sidechain compression, but the problem is,
I was thinking
it might interfere with this. So we can also just turn this down a little bit, about like 3 dB or so. So that second half, and we do a little crossfade. Has it already got one? Might already have one. And then what we can do is use sidechain compression for compressing the music from Lisa's vocals. So we'll go through that again. We've done it once or twice before, but it's something that I think takes a little bit of time to get your head around. So I'm just going to put this here. I'll just change. So in here we add recomp. We add it, and here we go. So no preset. Here we detect the main input. So main input channel, auxiliary channel left. Left or right it shouldn't make a difference. And then what we do here is we send, now Reaper is really strange with this. I think it's maybe the most confusing software to do sends. So we go new send, and we want to send it to the channel the music is in. So we scroll all the way down, and music is somewhere here. There we go. And now the difference is we want to make the channels to be 4 channels. And we should be able to select here. Sorry, no, not 4 channels here. 2 channels here, 4 channels here. New channel, so stereo source, 3 and 4. You can also just send it to just 3 or just 4, but I'm just sending it to 3 and 4 to be safe. Oh, sorry, no, receiving tracks 3 and 4, this should be 1 and 2. I don't know why they make it such an over-the-top version. And then the next thing we're going to do is make this pre-fader pre-effects, just so that nothing that we do if we change any effects later online is going to affect how this track is being compressed. So now we go back over to here, to the compressor. I'm going to open it up. And let's have a little, let's see. I'll zoom out, where is it? Here.
Seen anything else and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to. I started looking for people who I
And so what I'm going to do is do a fairly fast attack time for this, like something like 0.1 milliseconds, but then quite a slow release, because the slow release is going to mean you're not hearing this kind of pumping sound of like constant compression dropping and getting louder and quieter. It's going to be more of a smoothness. And I'm also going to do a bit of pre-compression because we want the transition in to be a little bit smoother. I'm going to use a bit of a knee, and I think we explained before, the knee is basically like the smooth transition from crossing the threshold line to not. So by having more of a knee, you have basically a smoother, you could almost think of it like a fade into compression, maybe is the best way. So let's have a little look now and see.
Any place to stay or anyone to talk to. I started looking for people who I knew in Austria, in Europe, who knew where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her.
Okay, so actually I don't think now that we've done that, we're going to need that reverb. But what I will do instead of using this, we'll look at just automating a reverb send just at the very end of the tail, just to maybe potentially make it a little bit more smooth. So we could just drag this, go to the reverb, and this time I'll use the big reverb. I will start it all the way at 0. And then we just open up the trim again for automation. And we go to reverb send volume and we tick here. So it's visible, it's armed. And then just zoom in over here. And this last little bit, we're going to go insert maybe from here somewhere. Not quite done it yet. Just going to make it a little bit bigger. Insert point. And we'll go insert point. And finally, insert. Insert point. No. And then we just drag this little, drag this up somewhere kind of like this. Let's see how this sounds.
You, where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation.
Bring it in a little bit sooner. So just over this section.
You, where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can
That's a bit
provide
too
the
much, I
accommodation
think.
for her. And
I'm kind of aiming here not to necessarily hear the reverb, but just have it that you almost don't feel the track disappears. It just somehow stops playing and you've kind of barely noticed it. So it's just about messing around, I think, with the shape of this slope here.
Who I knew in Austria, in Europe, who knew where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm just going to do this as well. But that's enough for me. It's very subtle, but it does the goal of what I want. So now that we've done that, we can just untick the here. So it's non-visible. Keep that active and just take the visibility away. I'm going to color this now, so it's colored for musical. musical things, which we've got as purple, and collapse it back down. And then we'll play a little bit beforehand so you can see the context of this and see the section that we've got.
Who never been abroad, who never seen anything else, and didn't have any place to stay or anyone to talk to.
Perfect.
I started looking for people who I knew in Austria, in Europe, who knew where the refugees were welcome, or someone who can provide the accommodation for her. And I just contacted one of my closest friends, let's say, in Austria, asking her, okay, maybe she has someone who can take her in. And she was like, yeah, I don't have anyone, but here's the link to this person. Maybe you can talk to her and she will find something for you.
Okay, so this bit's still maybe a bit blank. We can bring this section, because it's a huge gap that we definitely don't need at this size.
So I was kind of just calling here and there, so on and so forth. And I called this one lady, as I found out while talking to her, she was a non-profit organization.
Okay, so
I was kind of just calling here and there, so on and so forth. And I called this one lady, as I found out while talking to her, she wasn't just someone with an accommodation, but actually an entrepreneur who was running a non-profit organization or recently started.
Okay,
so I was kind of just calling here and there, so on and so forth. And I called this.
So we could maybe put some sounds of telephones. In fact, that office ambience that we had before might have actually been quite good for that. But I'll just make a marker of it so we have a little note in our head. I don't know if it's necessary. I'll just keep going through it.
And I called this one lady, as I found out while talking to her, she wasn't just someone with an accommodation, but actually an entrepreneur who was running a non-profit organization or recently started running a non-profit organization helping refugees cross the border. Just one person, but she had a whole organization set up for it. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, so we got this settled. We found a place for this person, right? But maybe we can connect it to what my family is doing and what can they provide. Okay. From here, probably I should kind of move back and tell what's been my family's business and how these two stories can go back together.
Okay, so at this point, I really like the idea of like a sweet drone sort of thing.
Okay.
From here, kind of fade up
I
over
should
that section.
kind of move back and tell what's been.
I think actually maybe we might already have the drone. It's just not using all of the ones, because when we stacked them together, we made like this kind of suspenseful one. But I think there was a suite. Yeah, it should be labeled as suite. Let's see what it sounds like by itself. Maybe this is right. It could potentially work. I just kind of like that idea of, I guess, conceptually all the stuff before in terms of the sound design over Lisa's part has been very real world specific narrative. This is kind of then taking a step back to, what's the word? Maybe change it from being in that story to like signposting that now we're explaining a different part of the story to see how the two rejoin. So it's just like a different stylistic thing. So let's just see how that works over this something.
Family is doing and what can they provide. Okay. From
it's a little bit. Maybe bring it down in volume a little bit. Otherwise it dominates, I think, the soundscape a little bit.
They provide. Okay. From here, probably I should kind of move back and tell what's been my family's business and how these two stories can go back together.
Okay, yeah, and then we can just take this big gap because it's huge and cut a little bit out of it. Oh, no, that's the whole point. Yeah. And this is maybe also why I really like working in chunks of audio. Like I've cut this up and might still slightly tweak them because you aren't committed to the structure as much. Whereas if you've done all these tiny, fine edits, and then you're trying to move like a big chunk like I just have now, because actually, oh, the drone should only be 5 seconds, not 10 seconds. You're not having to click 101 different items and scroll all the way out to make sure you've not missed a single edit to drag them back. And I think that speeds you up when you're actually working, which means you make better decisions from the contextual point of what you're working on, rather than thinking, oh, this is actually going to be such an edit. Is it really important that I take that 1 second away? So let's have a little listen to that again.
Go back together. My family, particularly my dad, runs a small local.
Okay, it would be nice to maybe have some sort of sound effect jump in there, but right now I don't know if we have one. So we'll just listen to this next little section, and then we'll maybe talk about like reference exports just after this. So we'll listen to it here.
My family, particularly my dad, runs a small local business, which is transportation company that provides needed transport for whoever basically our customer is. So for example, if there is a sport group needed to go to Slovakia, we can provide a bus. When the war started, the first impulse of my dad was to help people. What he was also trying to do while we were, running away and in all this distress, also trying to help people get through the border and use his transport to transfer them. The problem was that he didn't know where to settle them, and he didn't have anyone who would welcome those people. That's where this perfect connection, perfect puzzle started to work, is where I had suddenly, from finding an accommodation for one person, I found this amazing entrepreneur who was actually helping people find home in Europe. And I have my dad's transportation company having a ability to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here.
Okay, and again, we've got another little dodgy edit. So I'm just going to go in and just take that breath away.
Here.
Yeah, so just a case of cutting, deleting that, doing a little fade.
Who would welcome them here.
Perfect. And I'll bring this a bit closer because I think it's probably a bit far away.
Welcome them here. Democracy lives in Kiev right now. Honestly, I really wished that Ukraine would get its recognition in another way rather than from a war. Honestly, I would, if I could change that, I would. But since it's something we cannot change, I'm really glad that finally we got our voices got heard. Maybe not the way we wanted them to be yet, but definitely on a global scale, we are finally being heard. And finally, there's no people who would not be able to point where Ukraine is.
And then this last little section.
Before 2013, it was quite bad. Before 21st of February, it was definitely, the situation was national identity was definitely much improved. But after 24th of February, there is no discussion there about Ukrainian being a wholesome nation, staying connected and staying together. So,
okay, so I'm just going to edit this last little bit at the back, and then I think we just need a couple transitional bits to make these parts stick together smoothly.
But after 24th, Ukrainian being a wholesome nation, staying connected and staying together. So,
okay, so I'm going to try to take the solo waves together.
Connected and staying together. Staying together. And staying together.
Yeah, and just a little bit of a fade, and that's probably the closest we get
together.
Okay, so that's pretty. There weren't a huge amount of sound effects or anything I heard there. The main thing was this transitioning from, I guess, narrative story to this bit more philosophical, like impactful line about democracy.
Would welcome them here, to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here. Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know,
okay. I'm trying to think, because we could potentially also rearrange this to be near the front of the, you know, like the intro section introducing Lisa, but it's kind of nice.
Transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here.
Otherwise, we could just do some kind of transitional sounds.
Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know, honestly, I really wished that.
Do you have any ideas, Eugene? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know.
So, okay, yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky one because I think it's really impactful it just coming in dry like that, and I don't want to put things on it because it's already.
Play it again.
Yeah, so it's going.
Transportation company having a ability to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here. Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know.
Yeah, I'm just having a little think as well. We could just do a similar kind of thing with that drone transition. It might be the easiest and it might work really well, but it could also just be a bit overused. But maybe we can have a little look at taking something across from, see what different ones. So we have, because we could go, in fact, from the sweet drone, because it's ending on like a nice note, to a slightly more like, what's the word, foreboding sort of droney sound and fade between the two, because it's kind of,
yeah,
maybe. Let's see, so we've got like this one, and then we've got this low drone.
Because
let's see how that gets pieced together.
You know, actually, maybe I can, you, and I might send you a sample that might fit in that context.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah, so let me pop over down here. So other than that, there weren't any particular bits that I felt really needed. It was just that transition because it's a very stark change, you know, in tonality. But while Eugene will come back to popping that together, but I think something else that's quite nice to talk about, especially at this point in the workshops, is to talk about reference mixes. So obviously at the moment, whenever we've been working on anything related to podcasts, it's been in Reaper, we've been listening to it in Reaper, but sometimes you don't want to necessarily listen in that sort of environment. So there's a tendency, and I have it as well, that when you listen to the piece of work you want to work on in the software that you're making it in, and have the ability to edit it, that you're going to suddenly start editing rather than just listening like a, you know, like a viewer would without looking at anything. And what can be really nice is to actually export what you currently have, even in its unfinished form, but in a way so that you can put it when you're on the bus or driving and play it in your car and listen to it from that completely new perspective. And I think it's kind of nice as a workflow thing, because you're committed in that moment to listening to it from purely your own critical standpoint rather than from like the editor and creator standpoint. So what you can do, I'll quickly talk through some export settings. I don't think we've done that before.
I've sent you the link.
Perfect.
Maybe we can even use it later.
I've got the link downloaded just now. But I'll talk through the export settings, and then we'll go back and drag in and just do a couple little tweaky things. But say if we had we were kind of happy with where we're up to today. And at the end of the day, usually at the end of most days, if it's especially something like a mix that I'm working on, I'll export it every day with the name of the session so I can find it. So what you do is you do, let me make sure because they name differently in each software. Batch item, project render, metadata. I think it is just render, but it might, export, no, consolidate / export tracks, queued render. Let me check what render does. I think render, okay, it is render, it does render. So in order to actually export, so it's not just sitting in the software with all the effects and everything to give you a stereo WAV file or an MP3 or whatever you want to need, go here into the render option, which is under file, and you've got a whole bunch of different options. So normally I will do time selection. So before I actually click this, I will select, like you can see, the whole region I want of the podcast, the song, whatever, and then select that. Because if you select the entire project, it's going to go, I think, either to the last audio file, which might be too fast, it might clip it, or it'll just give you a bunch of silence at the end. Then you can select your directory. So if you want to specifically bounce it, maybe your computer's full and you're working from a hard drive, vice versa, you can select the exact directory you want to send it to. You have the file name, and what I normally do, we've actually been working with Victor Podcast at the moment, because when we made this at the beginning, I named it Victor because I brought his stuff in, but it actually should be renamed to just Ukrainian Podcast. But I've got this kind of naming convention I use. So it's sandwich edit because I name it so that I know it's me that was editing it. And then there's the version number. So it's sandwich edit number 5. And normally at the end of every day or so, I will make a new file save as. And I will also do a little export like this and name it the exact same so that I can keep it in the folder and re-reference the bounce file. So I don't need to open up Mix 5 in the software. I can just listen to Mix 5 from the bounces folder. So yeah, then again, you've got the directory, the sample rate. So this is kind of important to talk about as well, and the channels. So at the moment, I believe we're working actually in 48,000. And that's usually the standard for video-based anything, but a lot of podcasts get exported in 48,000 for Spotify. So CD standard is 44.1 thousand. But for streaming services, they still, I believe, stream at 44,000, but a lot of the time you can actually upload at 48,000, especially in terms of podcasting. And for YouTube or any video related stuff, say if you're making a podcast, you wanted it to have like a video format, you would probably want the sample rate to be 48,000. For us, it will just export it in stereo. If we were doing like an ambisonics thing or a surround sound thing, we can export in these multiple formats. So this is 5.1, this is 7.1. Then you've got this render speed. I would just usually keep it to full speed offline, but you can also have it do it in real time and listen back to it. Other than that, I'm just checking through. There's nothing. I would never have it normalized. You can actually normalize it to LUFS, which I'll talk about quickly and we'll revisit when we come to export the final thing. And this is actually quite useful. Normally, I would never recommend to normalize, but what this means, LUFS integrated, LUFS momentary, LUFS short term, there's basically a loudness meter of the overall loudness of a file. So it's not just the volume instantaneously, but the volume of the entire track all the way down and finding an average of it. Now, integrated is the one that services use. So for example, Spotify, Apple Music, all of these places, they reference your, whatever you put, music, podcasts, to the LUFS meter. So they have like a specific standard, which is minus 14 LUFS, so loudness units full scale. And they will penalize you if say if it's a song, for example, if it's louder than that, or if it's a podcast that's louder than that, they'll actually turn it down. So it's going to appear softer than something that was at minus 14 in terms of dynamics. So usually you want to, especially for a podcast like this, I would actually probably encourage you, especially if you're starting out and haven't quite got to the grips with using compression subtly, etc. On the end, exporting this at LUFS, the I version, which stands for integrated, and then selecting this to be -14 like that. And you tick this little box. And I would maybe say this might be a useful box to tick, because technically, if it's too quiet, they're actually going to turn you up. So Spotify, Apple Music, etc. If you're -15, for example, they will boost everything of your export by 1 dB, as long as, actually, sorry, no, that's not true, because you will be clipping. They won't boost it to a point at which it clips. So I would maybe keep this unticked. You can also put brick wall limiting here. I would probably recommend doing this on the fader, like on the master fader. But again, if you're still just getting to grips with limiting compression and it's like a little bit too complicated, or you are scared of making mistakes, then I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it this way. But what I would say is the standards for Spotify, both for podcasts and for music, and this is the same for Apple Music, I believe. They do have slight differences. I know that Spotify is -14. I think Apple Music is -14. Some of them are like -13.5. But you want to use true peak. So if you're going to do a limiting here, you brick wall limit, you would tick that. You'd select true peak, and then the standard is -14 with -1 dB peak. So that means the very, very loudest part of your song is going to be at -1 dB. It will be, you have a whole 1 dB of headroom before it clips. So these are the kind of settings that I would recommend if you want to do this post-process rendering. So basically what that means is it bounces the whole file. And then once it's bounced the file, it applies this processing. It normalizes it to these LUFS and applies a brick wall limited to this. So it's really, really useful, I think, for someone that's just getting into working with audio and podcast making, and it means you can meet the industry standards super, super easily, super fast, without too much worry about backwardsing and forwardsing. Then I'll talk very quickly about this dithering. This is to do with bit depth. So you can see here we have bit depth and it's at 24. Now, for example, if you were to downgrade the bit depth, which you shouldn't need to if you're just going for streaming platforms, exporting at 48 and 24 bits is perfectly fine. But maybe for some reason you were going to put something onto a CD, or you needed it at a lower bit depth. So the standard one would be to go to CD, which is 16-bit. To do that, what you want to do is tick this little dither box, and that, without getting too complicated, it basically means it does this transition from 24-bit to 16-bit a bit smoother. It takes away some background noise or artifacts that you might get if you didn't tick that. And that's all that's probably worthwhile knowing, because otherwise it's a very overly complicated subject with very little interest in it. And then you have the formats here. So WAV is usually the standard. I would probably recommend you just stick with WAV. You can see there's a whole bunch. FLAC, WAV, AIFF are all probably the highest quality. They're all kind of lossless, all WAV pack as well, actually. But generally, I think sticking to WAV just to keep it simple. If you want to maybe have something on your phone that's not a big amount of space, so you can go out and test it on headphones when you go for a walk. You can also do an MP3. It's this one here. It's encoded by the Lane project, which is like a specific, I think it's called a wrapper, like the way it's encoding the MP3 file. I didn't know they do DDP actually, but you can export DDP for essentially CD direct, so it's ready to print it to CD. But for all intents and purposes, we'd probably be selecting WAV, 24-bit. Don't need to worry about these auto WAVs, etc. Don't need to, you can include this in basically the metadata if you want to have the name saved to it, which can be useful. And that's kind of everything. And then just from there, you just click render one file. I won't do it now just because it will probably freeze my laptop, and I still want to add a couple things into it. But yeah, that's kind of the basics of rendering out reference mixes. And you can do that at the end of every day so that you can re-listen to what you've done, but in a totally different environment, etc. Yeah. So from that, we'll quickly have a look at finishing up with bringing in this drone and a nice little transition. So Eugene sent me.
It's not really a drone, but for example, even you could mix it with something, but this music would be appropriate for this transition. It's a musical piece on Kobza, but maybe you can also change the pitch of it and make it sound a little bit more, or even slow it down a little bit. What it's up, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just generally mix it with something.
Yeah, let's have a little look at that. So this is the piece that we've got. So I'm just going to solo.
So was this music you're saying that hit to the freedom laser free?
Yeah, no, I really like this. Yeah, I'm just going to check the ending of it to see how. Yeah, maybe we can take some from here.
Ending.
Yeah. Oh, no. So I think maybe from here, this could be a nice little section, like this part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's have a see. I think
how it works with the audio.
Yeah, I think it seems in my head. It seems to sit very nicely.
Oh yeah, then maybe even less. Maybe just you see.
No. I think it's. Oh no, it's this one. Yeah. But we can actually make it a bit longer. You know, we can use that stylistically as well. I just made it shorter.
Or just long fade. I don't know.
Yeah. I think maybe something like that. We can maybe apply the same sort of compression. Sidechain compression that we have.
There is a context game using this melody because this is the famous Ukrainian folk song. It's called Yichav Kozak za Dunai. Like the Cossack was going on the other riding on the other side of a Donber River, which kind of you know this like further European part, you know, the foreign part. And she's talking about like going away, and then but it's still Ukrainian song. I don't know.
Oh, okay, cool.
To transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here.
Okay, so what we can do is have a little bit like a tiny gap of silence, and just almost have it start like this.
Who would welcome them here?
And do a little fade in maybe.
One who would welcome them here.
Tweak that fade again.
Here. Then here. Democracy lays in Kiev right now. You know.
Okay, and then what we'll just do is accidentally open the trim up. Let me just hide it. And then we'll apply the same kind of compression that we have. So we'll just literally copy and paste. I'll drag this all the way back now to the musical section because the compressor that we set up last time is routed perfectly for this. So it's just a case of drag and drop. So if we put this here and then take that compressor, we hold Command, do this, and I'm just going to color this to purple, and we just tweak the threshold and some of the settings here again in the compressor to try and match basically the volume that we want the track to come back in at.
Transportation company having a ability to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here.
For some reason, I think there might be a little glitch in Reaper if you do a drag and drop, because that didn't seem to be too happy. So what I'm going to do is just, no, I know why, because I routed it to the wrong channel again. Sorry. So the only difference that I need to do is here, and I take Lisa and I send it to, it's this one, right? Yes, Nova. Yes. And where's that? Here. So what I do is change the audio. So this one to be 3 and 4, and make this pre-effects. And this should now
transportation company having a ability to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them.
There we go. Now it's working. So yes, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do the copy drag over, you need to change and put a new send on the track, like the vocal track, and send it to the new channel. So let me just go back again and let's see where we are.
Transportation company have
zoom some of that. And yeah,
having a ability to transfer people, but having no home in Europe. And I have my dad's transportation company having a ability to transfer people, but having no one who would welcome them here. Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know, honestly, I really wished that Ukraine would get its recognition.
Okay, well now what I'm just going to do is also turn that little last section down. So I'm going to adjust this fade to be kind of here. I'm going to do a cut on this note as well. So here, let me see. There, on that down. And then by just double clicking this, and just turn it down. I'll turn it down a fair bit, maybe like 10 dB. Let's have a look.
Democracy lives.
And I'm just going to then adjust that to where Lisa says democracy.
Democracy. Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know, honestly, I really
And then I'm just going to do this the tiniest little bit.
Democracy lives in Kiev right now.
Perfect.
You know, honestly, I
and
really
this
wished that Ukraine would get its recognition.
So let's try.
Democracy lives in Kiev right now. You know, honestly, I really wished that Ukraine would get its recognition in another way, rather than from a war, honestly.
There we go. So I think that is sounding really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So that kind of takes us up to time for today. But yeah, so we kind of went over basically all the skill sets we've currently been learning, but just applying them in a more fluid way, you know, and seeing how I kind of work with them a little bit more in a real world situation and thinking on the feet a little bit more. But yeah, thank you so much. I will stop the recording real quick. And yeah,